Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.
Yeah, back in Ljubljana, which was like, shit, 90 something.
Like early 90s or late 90s?
It was mid 90s, like with Kirk and Gary and Scott.
Yeah.
Like in that studio, if you remember, like with Brane, like it was a televised show. Maybe you forgot, but anyway, it's that. You know,
no, yeah, I don't know, maybe.
Such a burning concert. I was just like, man,
wow.
I love that. Yeah, still with Kirk singing the boat gig thing. Yeah. So, but speaking of vocals, and I will just jump in, and I wanted to ask you about adjustments.
Yeah.
I listened to it, and it's, I've known you for playing with guitarists, of course, and saxophone players, and besides Kirk singing, you haven't worked with singers actually. But how did this one with Mersal happen, and where did the connection come from? The decision also to do that. I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I met her on a session with Jimmy Haslip. He
really?
told me, we did a record for Carl Sterling called The Dream. And we were in the middle of working on it, and Jimmy told me, I'm going to bring this singer in from Colorado. And I guess I just thought, why? I mean, we got a lot of great people, at our disposal already. But he said, just trust me. So I said, okay, all right. So I went in for the session that day and proceeded to meet Mare. And we worked on 3 songs for that album. And I was just really impressed with her, just the way she sings, and her whole vibe was really cool. So so we continued a little bit more, working on that album, and then I just got the idea, like, why don't we do a record together? So just because, that's another whole different aspect of music to get into, and I feel like I have I don't know, I guess it's a little bit unique approach to doing vocal music. So it's just something I wanted to fool with. And I mean, it turned out that, like, she was just kind of getting out of a relationship, and I wasn't in one, so we kind of like connected.
Yeah, okay. But how was the work process musically going on? Did you guys like write together, or like how did that go? I mean,
well, she had just gone through a whole bunch of stuff, like ending her relationship and all that stuff. And so she wrote kind of about some of that, and she was already writing about that. And she brought those melodies to me, and so like it was kind of a co-writing thing, because she already wrote melodies, but I wrote the harmony and that type of accompaniment or whatever to her melodies, basically. It's beautiful. That's kind of how we work together on it.
It has your touch. I hear your harmonies like there.
And it's so all beautiful. It's all my friends are on the record. Like Gary Novak's all over it, and Gary plays on a couple of tunes, and Danny Carey plays on a tune.
Yeah, how did that happen? I told one of my students about this record. We're huge fans of Tool, obviously. Yeah. I was like, man, you have to check out, this record. And they're like, what? He's not really doing so many sideman stuff. So how did this story with him happen, actually?
Well, in LA, he tends to do gigs at the Baked Potato. I mean, little gigs. And he plays with Doug Webb, and who's a saxophone player, and he's always been interested in jazz. So he kind of dabbles a little bit, in that. And he's actually made an appearance on the last several of my albums. He's on Near Life Experience. He plays on a tune. What was it? It was called Kingpin. And And I just thought, yeah, it'd be really cool to get him on this one. So I asked him what he thought about it, and he was like, yeah, sure, come over to the loft. And so I went over there, and we recorded 2 tunes. Actually, we recorded this one and where he played tablas on 50 Circles Around the Sun too.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And he's a good friend, and
okay.
He's a serious music lover, so he's into all kinds of music.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see him like on a project like this also,
Yeah.
I mean, especially with Tim on bass, man. I'm such a fan of Tim also.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? They sound really good together. Yeah, they sound great together.
Good choice also, the rest of the crew, I know Alex Mahacek, I mean, we've done some stuff together, and Nir, and all these cats, like, how did you decide, who to place on which track, and how did that process go? Like,
it's just something that, like, when you imagine, like, I was working on a tune, and I would just think, like, well, I mean, who would be cool to play on this one? And so, I usually think of people that I know, and I really wanted to do that, Don't Give Up. And it's one of the first tunes that Mare sent me. It's probably like the first or second tune she sent me. But I ended up working on it last. I kind of had it in mind, and, I was going to work on it, and I worked on everything else. And then I finally came back to that tune, and I was thinking, well, I feel a little bit like I felt like it was climbing a mountain, start working on that tune, because I had already climbed 11 mountains and I was like, oh, another one. And so, I mean, I wanted to do it, but I was just feeling a little bit like, oh, okay, I feel a little bit tapped out. So I asked my friend Alex if he'd be interested in co-producing or arranging or whatever you want to call it, So he said, yeah, sure, just send me the track. So I sent it to him, and he did his thing to it, which was completely brilliant and beautiful. And I love what he did. So so that was super cool. And I've known Alex for a long time. I've probably met him, I don't know, 20 years ago or something.
Oh, wow, really? Wow.
And I've known him for ages. So it just made total sense to bring him into it.
Yeah. He's such a monster. We did one project together.
Incredible.
And arranging and everything, I just did a guitar project, and he recorded all of these, sounds, like playing on the acoustics and synths and all that, and he mastered it and mixed it. And I was like, man, wow, okay. I thought you would just record a guitar solo, and he just did his thing. Like, incredible, man.
He's amazing. And his wife, Sumitra, sang background on the tune too. She's
also cool. Yeah. Regarding your process, when you said, you had 11 mountains to climb, I remember, I think you guys played even on that gig After Hours, or not, but at least I remember that song you did from Tribal Tech.
Yeah.
I love that one, and especially, or like on the last one with Scott, the Tiny Circles.
Yeah.
Your harmony is like really, at least when I hear it, it's like really recognizable how you move. And I wanted to ask you, like, what is your process when composing? How do you usually start? Let's say, not with this project, maybe, which was like a co-writing project, but like in general, like tunes.
I mean, I think I do it the same way. I start with a melody. I have to have a melody of some kind. If I don't have a melody, then what am I harmonizing? I feel like harmony. I feel like you have to have something to harmonize.
Sure.
So I look at it from the melody down, I look at it from the melody line, and I'll just take whatever part of that I want to work on. And whether it's a vocal line or an instrumental line, I'll kind of separate that melody out, and then just start trying different things under it, So, I mean, I tend to want to, my general rule of thumb is I want to start kind of far away from wherever I've been. So if I'm in D flat, I mean, I might go to F major or something really far away, and just really starkly different, that's what I'm looking for, So like, I mean, if the vocal is, if I'm in D flat and the vocal goes to a B, I might play like an F major 7 sharp 11.
Lydian, yeah.
Yeah, just something really far away from wherever we've been hanging out. That's just generally what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm doing that. So I'd like to start with a melody. So if I have a melody, then I can kind of harmonize that melody, and that I feel like, yeah, I have a little bit of my own way of my own sound when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah.
And I've started with that years ago, but I didn't really do it that much. I just kind of did it for myself. I don't know why. I just didn't use it. I didn't use it. And then a few years back, when I was, you know, doing another vocal project, I just thought, well, this is where this needs to come out. This is where this needs to live. And I mean, I did some really crazy reharmonizations for Mel Breeze. She did a Brazilian record a couple of years ago, and I really dissected those tunes.
Yeah, I love that. If you take one note and what you can do with it, right?
Yeah.
Just like,
yeah, what you can do with one note.
if that's your lead one note, you have, like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, you
80,
can do
80 options, whatever.
Yeah, you've got a million options, and it's just, yeah, just whatever appeals to you. But I mean, that's just kind of how I go about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, when you mentioned melody, you know, I know you had a strong connection to Joe Zawinul.
Yeah.
And did you guys like ever talk about this, like the importance of melody, or like about developing music or composing also, or?
You know, Joe didn't really want to discuss music. He almost never did. Almost never did. And I mean, of course, I'm enthusiastic and I'm there and hanging around. And once in a while, I would say something like, "What do you think about when you play those chords?" And then, of course, I would get yelled at. You know, he would say, "I don't think of nothing. You know that." I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, sorry." We won't go there.
I can see him.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, he could be intimidating. I mean, yeah, but he was amazing, and he was a great friend, and I'll always love the time that I got to spend around him and learning from him, because I feel like I would learn from just being around.
Yeah.
I learned so much just by being around, and sometimes he would offer little things without really like saying like, "This is what I do," or "This is how I do it," or blah, blah, blah. But he would just sort of go like, "Hey, did you check this little thing out?" and play something for me. One time he had the sequence of his album, Faces and Places. You know, I worked with him a lot on that.
Which record. You kind of co-produced, right? Or even produced?
Yeah, I did. I co-produced the record.
Yeah.
I wasn't credited exactly like that, but
I love that one.
I was there 100 and something days. I was there almost every day from the very beginning of the album. So anyway, he had the sequence written down, you know, the sequence and the keys of each tune.
Oh,
you know, you don't want to put two
D flat tunes,
or whatever, you know. So he had tempos and the keys written down next to each song. And then what he was doing was he was improvising chord progression based on the order of the songs and the keys
and tempos.
And the keys that, you know, and he was playing a progression based on that. Like that's where he got the progression, and it sounded amazing. I mean, it just sounded unbelievable. So the things that he would just think a little bit differently, you know, and that would lead him into other avenues that were just so cool and so unusual. Another time I walked into the studio when he was just in there, and I could hear him playing from the other room, you know. I could hear, and I was really intrigued. I was like, what's he doing? That's so hip, you know. And I walked in there, and actually, to my surprise, he was playing a drum cat with drumsticks, and each pad had a chord on it.
Oh, wow, man.
And he was just playing it like that. He just did things a little left, you know. And I love that. And that's just, I don't know. You know, if I can just channel a little bit of that sometimes, I'm thrilled, because that's just incredible stuff to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, when I listen to you, I think you went completely your own way. I mean, there is like this touch of Joe, and which in a good sense, what I mean, you know, like of course, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, there's always probably going to be some touch of his influence, because it just, I mean, you know, when I was a kid, I discovered him, and it really changed my whole outlook on music completely.
You were a teenager when this happened?
I was probably in high school when I was definitely in high school when I first heard of him. I probably like a sophomore in high school or something. And the music just blew me away. I heard like Night Passage and Sport and Life first. And Sport and Life blew me away because of the openness of the music and how interesting that was, combined with just the sounds that Joe was getting from the keyboards were unbelievable. I just think today, even to this day. And
we're talking about like, you know, 40 years ago almost, when the sounds weren't so developed yet. I mean,
right. And MIDI had just come out. Yeah. That was his first album where he had the access to MIDI. So he was doing things, again, that no one would ever do except him. Like, you know, he was playing a keyboard part and he had it MIDI'd up to a drum machine, which was hitting a cymbal on every beat. That's Ice Pick Willie, right?
Yeah,
that's what he did, stuff like that. I mean, I remember accidents like that happening and fixing it.
Yeah, sure.
I don't ever remember accidents like that happening and going with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But Joe just had that unbelievable openness to just accept cool accidents or cool things and just recognize when they were cool and capture it.
Yeah.
That's another thing. It's like, how do you know? Like you can, you know, you're always doing something, experimenting with something or hooking something to something else. And maybe it's not the result you wanted, but maybe it's cooler than what you were going for. How do you recognize that at the moment?
Yeah. And how he had the courage to do that also.
Right,
I think, you know, because like, it's easy to stick with something, but just to explore this spirit, I think that's, when I listen to his music or Weather Report or even the earlier stuff, you know, the jazzy stuff, it's like incredible. Yeah.
All of it. It's, I don't know. I still think it's my favorite music that I've pretty much ever heard. It's just so dimensional and so open and so like, the melodies, you're not sure the first time you hear it, is that a melody or is that something that he improvised?
Yeah,
and later
exactly.
And you go, oh, that was a melody. How about that? You know, I love that.
Yeah.
Always loved that.
Yeah, especially live. I saw him live like 2-3 times. And it was always like this.
Yeah.
You know, what's happening now? It's like the groove was going on, but you weren't sure whether it's the melody, whether it's an improv, and whether it's composed or whether it's improvised. Like, you know, it's so beautiful what he was doing. Yeah.
And, you know, he was super influenced by Ellington, and he would play those tunes from time to time on gigs. I mean,
did you guys ever play together? Like also like informally, I guess, right?
A little bit in his studio. He would sometimes just play something, you know. You know, we had percussion jams a lot. That was
like both of you on percussion, or
on percussion, but like little percussion, like little shakers and little stuff.
Man.
And we just jam, and it was a total blast. It was so good.
Wow. But did you meet Joe like through Scott Henderson, or no, because Scott was playing with Joe, right? Like
Scott was playing with Joe right before I started working with Scott.
Yeah.
And I always kind of thought, I was really hoping, you know, that he would introduce me, but that didn't happen. And of all things, it was, well, Scott was kind of afraid of him because he left the band to do Tribal Tech, and he was thinking that Joe was probably not happy about that.
Yeah.
And, you know, so he didn't introduce me, and I think in a way he was a little bit, you know, not in touch. So I actually met a guy who worked at a lighting store right by where I lived. He worked at a lighting store, and we were talking about music, and I don't know how, I guess he was friends with my roommate, and we were talking about music, and he said something like, yeah, man, well, you know, every Christmas time, right around now, Joe calls me and has me come out to the house to work on Christmas tree lights and stuff. So I was like, you're joking, right? And he goes, he just called. Do you want to go with me on Saturday or whatever? I'm like, quadruple yes, you know, like, of course, if you're serious. I don't know if you're joking, you know, but like, if you're serious, I'll definitely want to go. So next thing I know, I'm halfway up a ladder, and my friend Jim Getch is down there. No, I mean, Jim is a little bit above me. I'm in the middle, and Joe is down there going like a little to the left. That's how I met Joe Zawinul.
Oh man, that's beautiful. Actually, that's
and then when we were done, he said, "Yeah, I've been hearing a little bit about you, through the grapevine or whatever." And I didn't want that meeting to end, so I asked him something, just anything. And he said, "You want to come inside? Come inside." And he started plugging in keyboards and all. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
And that's the beginning of our friendship, and we stayed friends until the very end.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, actually, to meet your hero and then actually.
Oh man. And and not to be disappointed, A lot of people say, well, don't necessarily want to meet your hero because it might not be what you hoped for. But with Joe, it was everything I was hoping for and even more.
Yeah, man, I love reading autobiographies,
Yeah.
And of musicians. And, I will not name names, but many times I'm like, okay, Leonard Cohen. I'm like, really? Or whoever, Paul Simon. Like,
yeah.
Paul Simon.
Well, see, now that's one, Paul Simon, because I think he's unbelievable musician, and I love his records. And
one of my favorite players ever.
I would think that. I mean, I don't know what would imaginably be disappointing about him, but I'm guessing now there was something.
Yeah, or many stories like that, or you meet some people, you're like, okay, I thought you would be, I don't know, but of course, yeah, it's different when you meet also someone after a gig or something, or if you have like.
Well, that's true. That's true. It depends on the context that you meet someone in.
Yeah.
Oftentimes.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I had met Joe after a gig, it wouldn't have gone anywhere.
Sure.
I don't know. I doubt it.
Yeah.
But the way that we met, it just, I don't know. It just
it's beautiful. I mean, that's, yeah. Did he ever see you guys with Tribal Tech live or something like that? Or he heard the music probably, right?
I mean, to my knowledge, he never came to a gig, but I'm sure he must have heard stuff, or he'd heard about it, or from people that he trusted or whatever, because he said he had heard, good things about me.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, I don't know. I was a little bit surprised, but that's what he said. And so I don't know what he heard, but at some point he asked me when we were working together on his record. I'm pretty sure that was the time, but he asked me, "Hey, well, what are you working on?"
Oh,
and I said, "Well, I'm actually working on what would be my first record." And he said, "Well, let me hear it." So.
Oh, like Kinesthetics, or?
It turned out to be Kinesthetics.
Okay,
I was working on that record, and I went to my car, I grabbed the CD, I brought it in, he put it on. After we listened to the first 10 seconds of the first two tunes, and he reached out his hand, he goes, "Okay, you got the job." And I was like, "What does that mean?" He's like, I want to release your record. So I was like, "Oh, damn, that's unbelievable." So he's like, "Yeah, even my own bandmates, I don't know about what their records are. I don't know if I want to go there with that, but this one I really like." So. So that was really cool, and he did release it in Europe. The States version of his label never came together. I don't think it was called Bird Jam, but I don't think the States version ever came together.
Because it was on Abstract Logics, otherwise, right? In the States.
It's on Abstract Logic, yeah.
Yeah, I love that record. It's
the first or second. I think it's the second record they released.
Really?
Yeah,
oh wow! To check. Oh. But I want to ask you later about Kinesthetics. I mean, I love that song with Robert Hurst and Vinnie.
Oh,
and
quartet.
Quartet, yeah. it's just
it was exciting to get Vinnie on that tune,
How did that happen with Vinnie? Actually, you just called him up, or like?
No, I guess I was talking with Steve Tavaglione, and we were talking about musicians or people that would be cool, blah blah, stuff like that. And he just said, God, it'd be really cool to get Vinnie on that tune. And I was just thinking, well, I don't know him, and I wouldn't want to reach out to him. But he said, "Oh, I'll ask him for you." So Steve talked to him, and he just said, "Yeah, I'd love to do it." I guess he heard the tune, and he was like, "Sure, I'll be happy to." So I just sent him the track, and I went over there one day, and then we recorded that track, and we recorded maybe another one too, which I've since lost. I don't know where that.
Oh man! Oh shit.
Yeah, I should have put it on the record. I don't know why I didn't, but I was just going after quartet really, and we did another one just for fun. But yeah. Anyway, that was fun.
I mean, how did you know? I wanted to ask you about later, but like about kinesthetics. It's your debut, and how did you know when you were ready to become a band leader?
That's a good question.
Like, did you
I still didn't
talk with
feel
Joe
ready.
also about that? Like, did he encourage you to do a record or not really? Or like, what was the moment?
No, I had already decided to do the record, and it was such a confusing thing mentally because I was thinking, well, I mean, I've done a few Tribal Tech records and people kind of know what I'm doing there, but I had kind of put off doing my own record for quite a while, actually. I mean, I wanted to do one years before. That didn't happen. So because I missed that opportunity at that time, I was feeling a little bit nervous about it, and a little bit like, well, what is it that people, I wasn't sure at all. Like, what do people like about what I'm doing or maybe not like about what I'm doing? Because, I mean, I didn't want to put a record out that everybody would hate. And then I just came to realize more and more as I thought about it more and more that it didn't matter what anybody thought about it. It only mattered what I thought about it.
Yeah.
And it needed to be what I felt was a good, strong, record. And as long as I made that good for myself, it would be good for other people, So I kind of got that straightened around in my head to think that way. And I mean, that's pretty much what I did. I recorded it myself, I mixed it myself, and I mastered it myself. And it's the first record I ever went through that process on too. And that was a learning experience unto itself because, I mean, I really didn't have tons of recording gear at that point. And mastering, I have no idea what I was doing. So I would come up with a version of it and I would take it to like Steve Tavaglione's house and listen to it on his stereo, and it sounded worse than terrible.
Yeah.
And I'd just be like baffled because it sounded good in my studio, So, I would take it home and work on it some more or try to understand a few comments that friends of his made about it. Then I'd take it over to Danny Carey's place because he had mastering speakers from ones that he saw in a mastering studio. He ordered some,
sure.
So he had the real thing. So I took it there, listened to it, and I was like, okay, I feel like it's getting closer. Then I took it to New York City and I played it in Vlado's room, and he mastered for Sony Music all the pop records. And by then I was starting to go, okay, I think it's starting to sound okay. Like it's starting to sound good. And anyway, that was quite a process to learn how to.
So it was like a trial and error thing with that. Also.
Totally trial and error. Yeah. I probably mastered that record 100 times.
Oh man, okay.
I mean, maybe not 100, like so many times. I just kept, mastered it, happy, listened to it somewhere else, totally disappointed, back to the drawing board. So I mean, I think in the end it came out okay.
Yeah, it's a fantastic record. I mean, the tunes are beautiful and everything works. And when you became a band leader, like also playing live with that group,
mm-hmm.
How did you feel about that role, becoming a band leader? Being in Tribal Tech, in the end, it was still kind of a unit. You kind of contributed tunes, but it was more Scott's and Gary's thing, I guess. But still,
that was run by Henderson and Willis, and that was their band. They treated Kirk and I like equal band members.
Yeah.
As far as music and stuff like that. But it was a little bit, I don't know. I felt like, Tribal Tech was ending at that point too. So I wanted something to continue that vein a little bit and somehow like that type of thing. I didn't know of a lot of other bands doing that. And I felt like, I guess with Tribal leaving, my band could pick up the slack a little bit. And I guess in a way it did, especially since I had Scott with me in the live band on quite a few gigs. In town, I actually had Steve Tavaglione more.
Oh, really?
I was still playing with Kirk, and bass player would change from Jimmy Earl to sometimes Paul Shihadeh played. He's on the record too a little bit. And I don't know. I guess now it's become its own thing even more, after all these years. It's
like band leading, or
yeah. And I'm actually, I mean, these days it's been a lot harder to get out and play, but I'm still trying. I'm still trying to get that going now with adjustments just coming out. I feel like I need to go play that stuff. We just did one gig at the Baked Potato, which went really well, and hopefully I can get some touring happening, but I'm just looking into it now.
Yeah, to Europe would be a fun group, I think, for Europe.
It would be great. Yeah, it would be
like
great.
Italy.
And I mean, it's all the same. It's all my normal musicians that play with my other groups too. So
yeah.
We could probably work some of that music into it.
Yeah, that would be fun to see you guys live, man. Beautiful. Well, I'm mentioning touring. Like, when was the first time you toured Europe? You remember that? Was it with Tribal Tech, like, or
with like ever?
Like ever, yeah.
Oh yeah. That was with Tribal Tech. I had joined in probably in 91. I want to even say May of 91. I joined the band, and then within that year, I think we were invited to go play a festival in Italy. So we just flew over there for one gig.
Really? Oh man.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I think so. So we just flew there, and we did one gig, and then we turned around, and came home. But that was my first time in Europe, and it was great.
Yeah.
I think that was a festival, and I think like Mike Stern was on that gig. It was an outdoor festival. It was really kind of a cool place, like a theater outside or something.
Oh yeah, Italy's amazing. Yeah, it's like the best thing. Every time I make a tour and you send the tour schedule to musicians, and then they see like 3 or 4 gigs in Italy. Everyone is like, yeah.
I know. I mean, just alone because of the food is so amazing. I mean,
just for that,
yeah, just for that. And then everything else is awesome.
Everything, yeah, the audience are cool and all that, but just the food and drinks, wine, it's like, okay.
The food is still on my mind, and I haven't been there now in a few years, and it's like still I think about it all the time, like how amazing the food is.
Yeah.
You cannot find it in the States.
Yeah, the pristine touch. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I have to ask you this, like, I've been such a huge fan of Tribal Tech, and like I said, it was one of the first moments that inspired me to start playing more seriously jazz. But how was, like, you guys did some amazing records, Face First and Reality Check. I love those records. And but then you did like this between Rock and Science and the last one, like this long break. And how was it for you guys coming back to X? You all done your own stories. How was it musically?
Well, I think we took 10 years off. I think we took 10 years off in between the last, whatever that last studio record was called. What was it? Rocket Science? Was it
Rocket Science? Yeah.
And then we came back and did X, right?
X, yeah, like 12 years, I think it was. Yeah.
12 years.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just it was so, it's strange because it was. You kind of think, well, if Tribal Tech is coming back together to do an album, it's kind of a big deal. But it was so casual the way that it really happened. Henderson I was always in touch with Henderson and stuff, and one day he just said, "Hey man, what would you think about doing another Tribal Tech record?" And I just said, "All right, all right, why not? Why not? Just casually, like, why not?" Doesn't seem like it would be that hard to do,
Yeah, sure.
And I asked him, well, you want to talk to, I don't know if he asked me or I guess he said maybe talk to Kirk and he would talk to Willis or something like that. And Kirk was just like, hell yeah, I'll do it. Typical Kirk, right? He's super excited about it.
Yeah.
And Willis was like, why not? We all just said, well, why not, So the next thing I know, from not having really all that much communication for years, I didn't really speak with Willis very often. And he was living in
Spain, yeah.
And all that. And from that, kind of like almost no contact to like everybody getting together in my living room, one day, just like everybody shows up, it was kind of weird, kind of strange. There were no great big hellos or anything like that. We were just kind of matter of fact, like, oh, here we are, okay. And I recorded it in my own little studio and my house, and we did like 2 or 3 days, and that was it.
Oh.
And Willis and Kirk left as usual, and Henderson and I continued to work on what we had recorded and kind of sift through all the material, because we recorded probably about 40 different things.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and we had to sift through that to kind of collect 10 or 12 tunes or whatever we came up with.
Yeah. How come?
And then actually work on them a bit, you know.
Yeah, sure. Like do the arrangements and everything. Yeah. How come you guys didn't then continue like touring or promoting that? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, we started to kind of promote it. We did a quick tour in Italy, and we did an Asian tour. We played like in Korea, and we played in Tokyo. We played in Japan, and we played in India. But after that, I don't really know why it didn't. It's just like, why does anything happen or not happen? Sure. I don't know. I really don't know.
Funny. I
don't know. We just didn't do it, and we didn't tour more than that. And it was really strange, because I thought this should be a huge thing. Like we should be going on. We should play everywhere in Italy. We should probably play in the States. We should play all over Asia.
Yeah.
But what they ended up, like our agent or whoever was booking it, they booked like, a handful of gigs, and that was it. And I don't know. I guess we came home from that and just went, okay, well, that was enough of that. And I guess too, reminded, like being together again in the van or whatever, traveling and all that. I think that reminded us, not why we didn't do it, but it just reminded us what it was like again. And I think we just kind of went, that's really fun for 10 days. Bye.
Yeah, sure. Hey, you all also each developed in your own stories. I mean, makes sense in a way. I know
Henderson has got a successful trio.
Yeah, sure.
Years, and he's really into doing that. And I mean, I was doing my own bands and different things. And, Willis had some stuff, and even Kirk now. Kirk's got all kinds of stuff going on. So it's like, everybody's just got their own scene.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's cool. Scott, I wanted to ask you also, me being a guitarist, and about your connection with Kirk. Also, speaking of guitarists, Rosenwinkel. The Enemies of Energy, like being one of my favorite guitar records, Cubism and all those songs, and Grant and Number 10. I love Number 10. Like, how did your story with Kurt begin? I mean, I know you did something like in '92 already, do it, but like.
Yeah. Well, Kurt and I went to college together, and we met at Berkeley.
Oh, you were at Berkeley together? I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
We were. I mean, I lived right across the hall from him, and we just hit it off right away and became like best friends. And we played we had groups all through college. That was really what I was doing in college. I mean, if we're talking about like what bands did you have or whatever, I mean, I had a band with Kirk.
Oh, wow.
And he wrote for that quite a bit, and he wrote a lot of really good music for that, which I don't think anybody's really ever heard. And then after school, Kirk came to stay with me for about a month in LA, and that's when we did that Do It 1992. Yeah. So we did 4 or 5 tunes and just recorded them to an 8-at or something, and with a drum machine. And it could have been, I mean, I mean, that could have been really great stuff. I mean, it is great stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of a time capsule from 1992, which is why he put it out exactly like that, because it kind of takes you back to that time. But I mean, if I had further taken those tunes where they could go, I mean, I think it'd been really amazing. Yeah. So anyway, Kurt and I have been friends forever, and every time he comes back to LA, we hang out and stuff. And we haven't played music in a long time, but every time I see him too, we talk about, hey man, I mean, really, we should. If you think about, we have limited time on Earth, maybe we should get together and make some kind of a duo record or something, like a real record.
Yeah, beautiful.
Every time he's like, yeah, we should totally, man, we got to do that. And then, I mean, I don't know. He doesn't, he lives in Berlin.
So yeah, sure. It's hard. Yeah.
But I just realized that Mark Turner lives in LA now.
Oh, he moved to really? I played with Mark. Yeah, we did a record together years ago.
Oh, nice.
He's in LA, really?
Yeah, he's in LA, and he. So I mean, he's kind of around. So I'm
really. Oh man.
Yeah.
Man, you guys should do. Wow.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite tenors ever. Really, like.
Yeah, no, mine too. Yeah, he's unbelievably great. And he came over and did a track for Hardcore Records for one of their tributes. You know, they're doing these tributes to help in you know, various parts of the world. So we worked on one of those, and I mean, I had no idea that he was in town until then.
Wow. Oh, that's.
He needed a studio to record in, and I guess I don't know how it happened that he came to my place, but we were, I guess, like somehow my manager heard about that, and he was like, "Aren't you friends with Mark Turner?" I was like, "Of course, you know." He said, "Well, he's looking for a studio." I said, "Well, have him come over here, you know." Oh, wow. No problem, you know.
Oh man, that would be beautiful, yeah, to hear you guys together after a long time.
Yeah, me too. I would love to do that.
You have some future records already.
I'm actually working on a new album right now, you know.
Oh, really?
I mean, I've been working on it before I started with adjustments, and now that I've finished adjustments, I'm back on it. And
what's the concept? I mean, like, what's the idea?
Well, it's instrumental jazz for the most part, but there are a couple vocal things on it. There's a vocal tune that Jason Joseph sang a couple years ago, a tune that Hadrian wrote.
Yeah.
So I recorded that tune, and I'm gonna release it on this album. And then Meredith is on it a little bit in a different way than adjustments. More of like that kind of ensemble vocal concept, and but it's an instrumental music record.
That's
and
super.
I've got Pedro Martins is playing guitar on it.
Oh wow, beautiful!
Unbelievably great.
Yeah.
Gary Novak's playing drums. My friend Cyril Atef is somebody who's on all my records pretty much, at least a little bit. He's playing, and Tim LaFave is on there a lot. And,
oh, super!
I think it's going to be really good. I've just got to finish maybe a couple more tunes.
Oh, beautiful, man! Looking forward to that. Wow.
But I think I'll see if I can get Mark Turner on somewhere.
Yeah, please do. Man,
I gotta hear what you do, man. I haven't heard your music, but I'm certain that it's awesome. So I gotta hear it sometime.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. I'll send you the track with Alex Mahachik, definitely. So,
all right.
Yeah. Some stuff that I did. But Scott, not to take too much of your time, but since I have you here, I'm having this interview with Tim Hagans like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Nice.
And you played, with Tim so much. Also, you did those beautiful records.
I did so many records with him, with Bob Belden, and we played in Sweden together.
And Future Miles, it's so beautiful. It's like it's like amazing. Like, how did you start working with Tim? I mean, was it through Bob or? Yeah,
it was through Bob Belden, and Bob was bringing me out to New York every once in a while, and we would do projects. And Tim Hagans was always the trumpet player on those projects.
Yeah, and how did you meet Bob, by the way? I mean, like.
Well, again, through a mutual friend. He'd been hearing stuff from people that came to Tribal Tech gigs or something. And he was getting interested. And then my friend, the same guy who introduced me to Joe Zawinul, Jim Getch, introduced me to Bob Belden. They were old friends. Bob was, someone that I think Bob and Jim went to school together. And somehow they got talking about me, and Bob was like, well, I got a session coming up. Maybe I should bring him out, and he did. He invited me to come to New York and record with him for one of those records. I don't know which one it was now, but I met Tim and all those guys, Billy Kilson and Dave Dyson and all those cats, and a couple other keyboard players that were playing with them too at the time. And we just stayed in touch, And then, of course, tragically, Bob passed away a few years back. And but I brought Tim into the Mel Breeze record, actually, the latest one, which I produced, and so I brought Tim onto that project. So I recorded with Tim kind of recently. Had a great time with him. He's an amazing musician.
Yeah, I love him. Like that animation record. I mean, animation. Yeah, it's such a killer. I mean, beautiful record.
Yeah. I thought Imagination. Especially the title track was really cool.
Yeah, it sounds so modern. Even now, if you put it on, it's really modern.
Yeah.
Like, really.
That's what I like. I like stuff that hits you as modern no matter when you listen to it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that exactly, but I love when that can happen, you know?
Yeah, but that's like, you know, if I put on Kinesthetics now, it sounds to me like that. Or if I put on Face First. But so many records from the 80s, I will, you know, like the fusion era, like the GRP stuff.
Yeah, sounds a little bit dated, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like, it's musically, it's amazing. But just like sound-wise and everything, it's just like, maybe you should remaster it or something. I don't know. You know, it's just too
there's
time connected. I don't know.
I think it's the actual music. I mean,
also,
yeah. My thing is, I know it's funny to say this because you know, adjustments is very arranged, but I try not to over arrange because I want to keep things open and loose, generally speaking, you know. I want to get a vibe in the music, and the vibe is more important than the actual thing. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with it. So, I mean, the same with the ARC record. The ARC record
with Jimmy. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like that. It's pretty arranged, but it's based on grooves.
Yeah, that one I hear like that. Yeah, but I didn't. The adjustments I felt like really quite strongly arranged when I listened to it.
It is more so arranged than a lot of things. That's why I just did a gig in LA with the adjustments band, and we had to rehearse. We rehearsed twice. I mean, I've never rehearsed a band in like the past 20 years or something. But
no, beautiful. Yeah, cool. Cool, Scott. Okay, will not take more of your time. So, thanks for sharing some of your thoughts. And
absolutely,
really appreciate it. So.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's my pleasure. You know, it's fun. It's been fun to talk with you.
So.
Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.